Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 6th episode of the second edition of SCM Talk Show. As you all know, if you have been joining earlier also, we have this talk show every fortnight. So if you joined the last one, it was on 22nd May. And the next one we are planning after 2 weeks, that is on 19th June. Usually we do it on every Saturday, every alternate Saturday. And topics usually we choose from the survey that we send to you, and also when we source the speakers, we see what is their area of interest, and accordingly we decide the topic. So as usual practice, again this session will be recorded, and it will be made available on our YouTube channel as well as the mobile app, KnoWerX mobile app. Right now we are putting everyone on listen only mode. So if you have questions, if you want to interact with the speaker, please put your question in the chat box, and preferably please put the questions as and when these questions come into your mind. Towards the end, I think there is a glut of questions and it will be very difficult to answer everything. But we will take few questions depending on the availability of time. We will try to take few questions. So let us start this this talk show. So first of all, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Manmath Sahoo. He is working as a senior consultant for BCG Singapore. So right now he is connected from Singapore. So Manmath is a digital strategist and technology economist with experience in working with a large and complex business on topics such as business, data and technology strategy, enterprise architecture, digital business models, value engineering, agile operating model, and governance. So these are actually his area of specialization. So interesting thing is, apart from his current full-time role in Boston Consulting Group, that is BCG, he is also founder of Corporate DV, a digital advisory firm which advises small to medium businesses and startups, their executives in digital innovation topics. So he did his computer science engineering from Biju Patnaik University of Technology, Odisha. And in the past, Manmath worked for Huawei Technologies, Open Cloud, Infosys, and Dell. So I happened to meet him digitally, not physically, last year on another talk show. And that talk show was also on agri supply chain management that was hosted by Odisha Corporate Foundation, where he shared very impressive insights on India agri supply chain. So I thought that we should also invite him on this platform. So though he lives in Singapore, his heart is still in Odisha, India. So welcome, Manmath, to this talk show.
Thank you so much, sir. It's my pleasure to be here.
So yeah, it's our pleasure, that you are here. So today's topic, as you know, is agricultural agri supply chain management. And nowadays, when you hear about term agriculture, you start thinking about agitation of farmers of Haryana and Punjab, and maybe some farmers from Uttar Pradesh on Delhi border. Obviously, in the talk show, we do not want to get into politics, and we'll try our talk to be based on the facts and data, and not on any political alignment or opinions or feelings. So Manmath, since you've done some studies, from the last year that I saw that you have collected a lot of data and you've done some analysis and done some studies. My first question to you is how Indian agriculture differs from agriculture elsewhere in the world. So what are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as far as Indian agriculture is concerned?
Yeah, this is a great question. With my knowledge, studying Indian agriculture system a bit, and also, having the kind of a high-level knowledge around how this agriculture system functions and what's the strength of agriculture in other countries. The key difference that we see that in this part of the world and compared with India, the landholding size is a big problem. In other part of the world, the landholding of individuals is quite high. Whereas if you look at in India, the landholding size is quite small. So when we cultivate or we do some sort of an agriculture in the small landholding, to apply modern ways of doing farming and leveraging different sort of technology or even your inputs, it's actually become more costly. And the produce that we also harvest, it is also in a small quantity. And then that's the reason why we always look forward to selling someone in a local market or probably a middleman. Has been the biggest problem, or the number one problem that I have observed in Indian agriculture. Number two is actually advancement in the technology and the modern farming. If I look at the agriculture status in other countries, example Australia, Indonesia, Vietnam, they actually started to leverage modern technologies, be it information technology or farming technology, new years use of input like seeds and fertilizers. Whereas in India, the practices that we are using is actually quite traditional, and this has actually become a cultural bottleneck and also your production bottleneck in terms of reaching to the market and actually from a supply perspective, how we're meeting those demands. Third thing which I observe, if you look at the consumer behavior and the market need of those agriculture producers is actually changing dramatically. Whereas our country, we are still using the legacy methods and mindset and also producing the same sort of produce what we used to be producing earlier. But when we look at the consumer behavior, the consumer expectation is actually growing beyond that. And we are not able to address to that new set of behavior and new set of product demands and the kind of value addition the consumer is looking at. So this is, I think, in my view, has been the biggest difference between Indian agriculture system and the system which I see outside of India. Yeah, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Noise.
So if you really see that our population in India, the majority of the population is in villages. I think, and most of them are dependent on agriculture.
Right.
So what should be the way forward for our agriculture? How do we overcome these weaknesses and threats? And how do we convert them into opportunities?
Yeah. Okay. In my perspective, the biggest problem that I see it's quite aligned with the theme of this show, which is a supply chain management in agriculture. We have a quite fragmented supply chain, and which is actually distressing our farmers or our growers which actually living in the rural areas, because they are not able to get to the price which they want, and there is a large number of wastage which they are facing. So it means whatever the amount that they're producing and whatever the amount it's actually going to the consumer, that is a significant. It's over 30% of the wastages that other farmers are facing. Number three, actually, when farmers produce something, as I said, looking at the market and looking at the price point that the consumers are buying, not having that sort of transparency and not having that sort of visibility is actually, stopping your farmers are probably not able to grow the right sort of produce at right sort of time at a right price point, which can have a potential in the market. Other reason which also I look at is the quality. Like we, as a farmers, we always produce something and then we just give it to some intermediary or from some local markets. We actually don't look at how do we improve the quality of it. Because if you look at in the market, there are different segments of products, and we have a different price point for it. And when the produce has been sold to those intermediaries or probably the middlemen, they actually do some sort of segregation, and then they sell those products at a different price point. And this is actually not helping the farmer, because you do not have the ability, number one, and then you do not have the amount or the sufficient amount of the produce which you can do it by yourself. The cultivation practice is also very weak here, because the kind of knowledge or the awareness that the farmers should get, they're actually not getting. Yes, at the system level, at the country level, we have different webinars, we have different policies being intervened, we have different facilities has been given, but how much of it is actually going back to the farmer? How a farmer knows what are the new advancements that are happening? what is happening in my area or my district, in my state, and how do I leverage this knowledge to grow something better, and then able to sell that at a better price to have my better income. So this is also becoming a big challenge. And as I said, the fragmented supply chain is actually not giving that sort of transparency with the end-to-end process of the value chain, which actually as a farmer, I don't know, so I don't even have the ability to produce the right sort of things that we need in the market. I think has been a biggest challenge in my view. You are on mute, sir.
So wonderful input. Thank you so much. So I was coming to this supply chain bit, agriculture supply chain bit. So first of all, so let me ask you that how this agricultural supply chain differs from the normal supply chain. Usually when we talk about normal supply chain, we talk about electronics, textile, car, automobiles, and FMCG and all kind of things. Mainly the supply chain starts from, of course, it can start from agriculture also, but a lot of supply chain starts from mother nature, like mining, and then we get into manufacturing and distribution and retail and all of that. So how this supply chain differs from the normal supply chain?
Okay, if I look at the foundational construct of supply chain, it largely remains the same. As you just explained, like mining, manufacturing, distribution, retailing. And also it varies depending on the industries that you are in. Example, agriculture, electronics, services, and also it depends on the organizational operating model, like which company is doing it or which public sector organization is doing it. It actually gets some sort of caveats, and then it's tailored to specific to them. From an agriculture supply chain or any kind of supply chain, if I take it, the way we look at, okay, we start from like your procurement or input, then we procure that, then we mine that, manufacture and things like that. So I look at in a completely opposite way, front to back standpoint. So what is that we want to deliver to our consumer? What is that as a farmer? What is my job? What is that I'm doing? Or as a supply chain aggregator, what is my job, and what is that I'm doing, the end result of it? So if you look at it, like for example, I buy a juice packet or in the market with say 20 rupees. This is the end product which is going to end consumer, and largely it has three parts. One is like you have a pouch, you have a straw, and third thing is it's a juice, right? Which is actually gives us that's what we need. And if you look at this and how do we bring these three things together, let's focus on the juice. So juice is actually coming from the fruit. So fruit has to be grown from somewhere. It has to be procured, right? And then how do you procure it? It has to come from a farmer. How the farmer grows that fruit is actually he needs some sort of seeds or inputs. He needs some sort of land. Then he needs to grow that particular fruit and then supply with some sort of water, fertilizer to make sure that it is grown up in a way which has the demand in the market. And also after you harvest, you ensure that that particular fruit with a good quality and consistency it reaches to your next aggregator, and then that also reaches to your next value addition or a manufacturing. Then it goes to the distribution into the market, right? So if you look at from a front to back approach, it actually gives us a sense what is that we need to do, how do we need to do it, and as opposed to like, okay, we need to grow fruits. Okay, what fruits do we need? What kind of fruits that we can grow in my land? Papaya, banana, or probably pomegranate. Pomegranate has a market. Let's grow pomegranate this year or probably next 3 years. So having that sort of transparency and then making this entire value chain efficient is something that is very much needed from an agriculture standpoint. And that is how I explain the agriculture supply chain to the people as opposed to a traditional way of explaining a supply chain. And we just have to, the difference here is like we just have to change our mindset. Instead of us growing something, let's look at what is in the demand, and then we start backward and work backward and then grow the necessary things.
Great. So I think the supply chains are similar, whether it's agriculture or mining or whatever. I think the initial part is the one which differs. Yeah. The initial part, the procurement part is really what is different. How do you produce and how do you procure? So our supply chain, as we know, our management of supply chain, as you rightly said, 30% of the produce gets wasted.
Yeah.
So there are so many reasons, there are so many causes why, and what can be done, and so on and so forth. So let me ask you the first question: what are the areas of weaknesses in our supply chain, agriculture supply chain management, and what are the root causes?
Okay. In my view, if I look at the uh, the critical problems of our agriculture supply chain, is actually the efficiency and siloed operations. Like one part of the person doesn't know what will happen next. If a intermediate is actually taking the produce and giving to a next sort of the intermediary, he or she doesn't know what's going to happen after that. And this other problem is also at the level of aggregation. Like since we have the small, land holding, and then we are able to grow in a smaller quantity. So aggregation is also a becoming problem. And the core, if I go to the root cause of it, I think aggregation and the small landholding is the biggest problem, and also the efficient use of modern technologies. If I take like in Indian agriculture, there are few agri-tech startups which actually come up, and then they are doing really, really good job. What is that they are doing? They're actually building a efficient supply chain. They know where are the bottlenecks are, and how do you address those bottlenecks, building an efficient supply chain, leveraging people and technology, and then and also the capital, right? So capital is also essential. Then we will not talk about capital here. We will focus more on the people and the technology part of it. In the supply chain, to be more efficient, use of technology is quite important, and also mapping the available resources. Like for an example, if I'm growing say fruits, I should know when is the right time for me to grow that, and if I grow it, or if I even harvest it, where do I need to store it? Where is the related storage area near to my place? What are the transport systems available so that I can take from my land to that particular aggregator? And then I look at other things also very important that I've seen in the past. Uh, there is a bit of, I would say, credit facility, or the having the lack of the credit system is also becoming a challenge, and that is where I think that the value that intermediary actually playing. Not having enough of cash in hand to be able to grow, that also has been a root cause of for the farmers not being able to produce the way that they should be able to do.
Interesting, interesting, very interesting. So I think, though I don't want to get into politics, but I relate to a lot of the, I think the acts which have been framed and the agitation
Yes.
which is going on and all of that. But anyway, we will not get into that. So my question to you
Yeah.
is, how can you apply technology, especially information technology,
Yeah.
to modernize our agricultural supply chain management, and how we can increase the income of our farmers or the efficiency or whatever? How can we make our farmers little bit richer, or the value that they get,
Yeah.
which actually is eaten away by the intermediaries today?
Absolutely. Uh, th- this is one of the area which I also spoken to a few of the stakeholders from the Odisha government, and this is what I have seen is a largest problem that exists in Odisha today. It's very inefficient use of technology that's actually not giving that sort of market data. Let me put it in a structure. Like, what is the price of that product in the market? No, none of the farmers they know today. They know what is the price in the local market, but if you look at uh, one state to the neighboring state, even they don't know what's the price, even if it is like hundreds of kilometers. That is one problem. The transparency and the price and the market demand is one of the big problem. Number two problem is actually look at how do we know what are the available resources available nearby. So if I have, say, for example, in IT terms, as a farmer, most of the farmers, though not all, will are having a smartphone in their family. They might not be using it. Their brothers or probably their child should be using it. So having a mobile app in your mobile, then you should be able to click and see, okay, what is the price of this product in the market, and how much quantity is the demand that you see from different retailers or different distributors. Number two, you look at what are the available resources that are available, as I said, like storage, logistics, and things like that. Then you look at what's the best practice of growing that particular product or the commodity that you're actually producing. Let's look at what are the different policies or subsidies available for me to consume to ensure that I'm not over existing on my capital spend. Another reason also to look at who are actually my local peers who are actually growing the same thing. If I have some sort of question, uh, one good example I can give it in Odisha. Actually, there are some at particular time in the paddy there are some insect actually came in and which actually spoiled one district of the paddy. And having the right set of technology, or the service provider knows in this area, these are the kind of insects. This is actually ruining this paddy, and this is the approach to take to solve that problems. And you put that in a platform, and then in a mobile app, the other farmer in from other district or other state will look at, see, okay, if you find this kind of insects in your field, then you do this kind of practices, right? And this is because of this, and then that will have the potential problems if you do not take action. And this is the action that you take, and this is the benefit you get. As a farmer in neighboring district or neighboring state, I will be able to act on that too, and then that will actually reduce the loss that I will be facing. So having the information technology is a critical role. Data is very important because if you look at from a soil health perspective, like what there are different moisture level, what kind of soil is it, and what kind of products that can be grown, at what time we should give how much amount of water, what happened if one day rain, then what should be doing the next day. So this kind of information is something which can be gathered by the data and can be analyzed, and then in your mobile phone you'll be able to see that particular notification which is specific to that particular segment of farmers to take some specific actions to be able to reduce the amount of losses that you are incurring. So I see there is a great use of technology. Big lands, there is a use of drone systems for putting the fertilizer, looking at big, how the fruits actually is coming up. Is it a time for us to plug? So these kind of things, which is possible by using technology. And technology is just not for the business; it's actually for a social good, right? So we should be able to leverage that.
Farmers, yeah. Great, great, wonderful. So I'm sure this has to be all in vernacular language because India is such a big country with all different kind of languages. So all the
Yeah.
information has to come in that language of that farmer or state, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, Odisha has to come in Oriya, and for
Yeah,
Bengal has come to
exactly.
Bengali, and in Marathi, in Gujarati, and so many languages.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so
And
I
also
think
one
some
more thing
amount
is
of
like,
information being
yes.
sent by this, I think on television, and Doordarshan has some programs. Those are not adequate. There's
Yeah.
some Doordarshan programs and some, yeah.
I had I've come across them that in Odisha there was something called Krusi Vigyan, right? So this is something this depending on the season and the produce, they actually have some scientists talking about it. Uh, One challenge that I see, it's quite generalized. Okay? It is not specific, and then it's not specific to a district or something. And those are like, though they have taken the practical knowledge and then the past trends, but those are like highly generalized. And then, I mean, as a television show, you have limited time to show something on agriculture. That's half an hour or 1 hour. You do that, but we also need to explore other platforms. For example, YouTube. Like many of the people, they're actually watching videos over YouTube. And if you have something like, okay, for this is my channel, and then this is where you have videos uploaded continuously, like small videos in your regional language, and then when you need, you can go to this channel and then watch this video, right? And you don't have to talk to someone. No, channel TV is required. You just have everything is in the hand. It's just about a matter of putting the right set of content, and then making people aware that this content is available, so that they could come and watch this content whenever they need.
Exactly. So, so content has to be on demand, not on a
Yeah,
particular time, not on a
yeah,
channel. It has to be on demand. Excellent.
absolutely.
So I think one I think area, one market that we have is the global market, right? So I think
Yeah,
we have very less reach in the global market, and I'm sure the global market can fetch much higher
absolutely.
prices, better prices. So I think whatever we are exporting, in terms of food or agriculture produce, whatever we're exporting, mostly it is to Indian diaspora overseas
Yeah,
consumers, mostly.
yeah.
So what can we do to, reach to the global markets where, our farmers can fetch higher prices?
Absolutely. I think it's a good question that is being asked multiple times, and also I've seen people talking about it, but there has been hardly any actions on that. So when we are looking at attracting the global market, the consumer expectation is also quite different that in India, right? If I am example, I'm in Singapore, the way that these people consume rice, it's not the rice that we use. They use more like in a sticky rice, on which is mostly excuse me, coming from Vietnam and neighboring countries. And apart from rice, there are other agricultural produce also which is coming. And then from India, the demand, I mean, there is a demand. First of all, uh, the in demand has to be sensed. Look at what's the consumer expected, what kind of things that they want, or what quality, what price point. That sort of information is very much necessary. And then you try to ensure that you deliver to that market with the right set of quality and the consistency. Because I heard from big traders or the global traders that we are here, they say uh, we do not get enough amount of demand that we have, and there is no consistency and the quality in terms of the suppliers which actually they're in India. This is one big uh, thing that I hear from them, and the reason is always being because when we produce something or we harvest something, we actually put less emphasis on the quality, because if we do not have a quality, maybe one example was there was an avocado which was coming to Singapore, and then the entire shipment was cancelled because few of the avocados they found there were some chemical substances, and these chemical substances came in when actually the farmer cleaned those avocado after harvesting. The water they were using was not good, and they were having some iron particles in there. So that actually these two things. One, faces the problems of the loss of the farmer. Second thing is actually creates a reputational, not so good reputation of Indian agricultural produce. So these are the two things is very important. How do we ensure there is a quality and the
I think you've gone on mute.
sorry, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. Yeah, what I'm saying is like having a sense of the demand in this market, at what kind of commodities at what quality, and then having the right set of marketing in those regional in the global markets. And number three is actually ensuring that you are delivering up to that consistency and the quality and also the quantity. This has been I think we should work towards doing this, because one thing I believe is like as an Indian agricultural system, we should never think about like feeding 1 billion people, which is like which we have in India. We also need to think at we have to feed 7 billion people of the world, and the agriculture consumption by 2050 is going to grow almost like double because of addition of the population and also the food inclusion that actually will drive a demand for the agricultural consumption, and we need to be very vigilant in terms of sense those demand and also have our systems, policies, and our supply chain ready to be able to cater to that demand.
Great. So I think that is one thing which is very critical. I think quality, and a lot of corporate houses tried to get into that. I was attending one of the seminars, I think, on agriculture supply chain, and
Yeah,
I won't name the corporates, but a lot of corporates, try to join the supply chain, agriculture supply
yeah,
chain. And one thing you said in the beginning, I think the land holding is small, and therefore you need the local aggregator. So local
yes,
aggregator usually is a big farmer in the
yeah,
same region who tries to buy from the small farmers,
yeah,
and he has the money and the strength to take the supplies to the mandis, what we call as mandis,
yeah,
and then try to sell there. And so I think the corporate houses also got into that situation, but they burned their fingers. They could not really match to the service level provided by the local aggregators.
Yeah.
Because local aggregators has more sort of a relationship, closer relationship.
Exactly.
They provide money, and so not even so they not only provide the agricultural support, but emotional support, medical support, financial, so all kind of support they provide. So I
Right.
think that is something which these corporate houses could not really match.
Absolutely.
Because employees are employees. I mean, they don't have that kind of commitment as compared to the aggregators.
Yeah.
So, what are the strengths of these local aggregators or middlemen which the corporates cannot match? That is my
Absolutely. I
question.
think, yeah. I mean, this is one thing you really mentioned well, which is like they are employees. They are not your friends, right? They're not your friends. I'm not saying all the middlemen or intermediary that you see in local small villages, they're actually uh, good. It means they're actually always thinking the good about farmers. It's not like in all the cases, but it also does not undermine. There are still very good local aggregators who actually do a lot of value addition in terms of the important thing, as I said, is the credit, right? So we have small farmers which actually they need credit in order for them to produce something. And these local aggregators, or probably the big aggregator that you just mentioned, they actually provide them the credit facility. Number two is actually giving assurance that you are buying the produce from them. I produce something and then I harvest. And for example, I harvest my paddy, and there is the potential of raining in the same day or next day. So you need to ensure that, okay, I contact this person, he actually brings in logistics and make it ready, and then when I harvest it, he takes it. So the risk that I have on me is actually being transferred to that person who is more efficient in terms of managing those outputs, right? So this is actually is a second big advantage. Third thing is, as I said, like human being, that empathy. Uh, they are locally operating. They understand the people. They see them each other every day, and this is what they have the value in terms of others. Uh, for big corporate aggregators to come into that place, having just the employees is not enough. And in my view, the big corporates should not also look at eliminating these intermediaries, because they are also our people. They also have family. They also need to feed their family. Okay, there might be some bad actors there, but there is largely good players also. These corporate houses need to have some sort of a business model. How can they take advantage of these local aggregators are there, showing them the value that how they can partner with these big corporate houses. What is the value add that corporate houses can give to them, and also look at uh, the existing establishments of these local aggregators, like for example, credit facility, giving the assurance to buy. These kind of things should continue. Like corporate houses are here, then you have your local aggregators, which is already there, and then you have the farmers. And if as a corporate you have capital, you have technology, you have the manpower, you can make your entire value chain more efficient. That is where you can give more value to your aggregator, and then put indirectly more value to your farmers. If farmers will observe this kind of efficiencies or improvement, then probably you should be able to win that trust. And some companies or startups, I think they started doing in this way, but you know it's not Indian agriculture is quite complex. It's not a 1 year 2 years. You need to have a 5 years or a 10 years plan in order to win the hearts and minds of the farmers. And
I'm
communication has been a big important factor. I mean, we will not discuss about like the politics and then everything, but the policies which comes, it has to be absolutely looked at from a long term, right? 10 years down the line, and then any change that we encounter is always challenging. Change is never been very easy for people to adapt, right? And then
absolutely.
how do we embrace that change and then look at from a long-term perspective? That's also very important, and communication is very important. The lack of communication and lack of consultation to the rural level is actually undermine the effort or the intent that you have behind taking the India into a level of agricultural house.
Absolutely. So actually, I think these intermediaries have a very important role to play in the supply chain, because they are
Yeah,
the one who can actually take the produce to the mandis, or whichever market it is. But
yeah,
I'm sure that they will see corporate entry as a threat,
yeah,
because they will probably feel that they will get eliminated, or
yeah,
their income will go down or something like that. So I'm sure they will pose a lot of resistance for
yeah.
these corporate houses to come in.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I see. At least in the near term, I see this is a biggest challenge.
So I think there is some success. I think with ITC. I think ITC has a agro
Yeah,
division, agro. I think company, separate company. So some success there, but I personally know that a lot of other corporate houses entered and then they backed out. So do you
yeah,
have any
yeah.
case study of a successful supply chain management, and especially let's say something which has a global reach? Something has a pan India reach and something has a global reach. Somebody who transformed the supply chain. Do you have a case study, a small case study or large case study, whatever?
Uh, when honestly, I don't have many because I've not probably have deep dive into that. But one company I look at is Olam, which is started in India now. They have the headquarters in Singapore. I think they're doing the commodity trading in like many countries, and they have a very good procurement and supply chain system. When they do the and when they get a lot of produce from Africa, from India, from Southeast Asia, and rest of the world, they actually do the commodity trading, and then the the quantity and the quality and the pricing and the end-to-end transparency and efficiency in the supply chain is quite good. And this what I think is one of the global case study that I could refer. As you just mentioned about ITC, I heard like the agricultural division of ITC in Rajasthan, if I'm not wrong, they are actually coming up this local aggregator and having that digital marketplace connecting to the local level FPOs, FPCs, and then they have been able to get some level of success in Rajasthan. Uh, other, I think that is very regional. For example, in Bangalore, I know Ninja Card is that we're actually committed to bring or improve the income of the farmer at the same time giving fresh produce to the consumer. And they have been doing good in some but particular few of the product areas. Uh, there is not many others that I have seen. I've heard also about AgriBazaar. They are also doing mostly on the Maharashtra area. I know because one of my friend actually was telling me. But still, it's at the level of in national. But at the global level, we still yet to see players coming in. But there are some international players like Cargill and all that are actually entering, and then they are doing good sort of uh, taking the experience and expertise that they have and muscle power that they have, and then implementing that in India. FPO and FPC, the construct that has been coming from the government, I think this is also this is absolute necessary, and it is a matter of how seriously the FPOs are being formed. How are you equipping the FPOs to operate at the level that you intend, and making sure that they are also not doing the same thing which intermediaries are, few of the intermediaries are doing. So that is very important to actually reform the agricultural system in India.
So, Manmath, you want to explain FPO and FPC? I don't think many listeners would exactly know
Okay.
that.
Okay. FPO, I know that's a farmer producer organization. It's a local aggregation. It's a group of I think they have 300 to 500 farmers and maybe more. Well, many of the small landholding farmers, they come together. They built a private company called the Farmer Producer Organization, and then also they have the board of director, the CEO, and few of the assistants, and those are all farmers. And what the primary objective or the goal that they have is actually provide the inputs or like fertilizers and seeds to this farmer, and then they procure at the bulk quantity where they can get a price advantage, and also they procure all of the produce from the farmers, and then they procure all of the produce from the farmers, and then they procure all of the produce from the farmers, and then they procure all of the produce from the farmers, and then they procure all of the produce from the farmers, and then they procure all of the produce from the farmers, and then they procure all of the produce from the farmers, and also they procure all of the produce from the farmers, bring those produce to that particular centralized area, then do some sort of cleaning, drying, segregation, and things like that. Arrange the transport, have the aggregation, have the local partners, the storage provider, and then also have a connection to the next level of aggregator or to a buyer, and then they actually bear the risk of collecting the produce, doing the value addition, and then selling it to the bigger aggregators. So that's the core of the FPOs, because this is necessary because, as I said, like as a farmer, you always think about selling something in your local market, but having a 500, 1,000 farmers coming together, they can get the inputs in better price. They can sell the outputs also at a better price, which is actually a way to increase the income of the farmers.
So isn't it a threat to the intermediaries, and is it similar to the Amul model? So I have two questions.
Yeah, I say quite similar to the Amul model. I think they also have the similar model. It is not same as intermediaries. I would say intermediaries also see this POFPC model is also a threat. And it might be like one of the, say, for example, if an intermediary also has farming lands and also a farmer, he can be a part of that. And then if he has the capability or connection or probably the network, he can leverage that to bring a change in the local farmer system. So having the right sort of intention is also very much a need in this case.
Wonderful. I think so. I think though we are not talking about the agitation and the laws and all that, but a lot of people will understand why this is going on. I think because of discussion, so we
Yeah.
don't want to discuss that, but it's a clear background that where we our efficiencies are, where our weaknesses are, where we are lacking, and what we need to do. So I think I'll switch over to other segment of the discussion. Usually we have in every of this talk show. So we eventually want you to guide our participants, our listeners, about the career path and so on. So first of all, we want to dive into your career path and want to understand from your school, college days and till today, where you have reached and how you have reached here.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question to answer. I mean, just to give a bit of background, I actually come from a small place in Odisha. It's actually in the Bhadrak district. I actually brought up there, then did my schooling and my plus two till in the local area. Then I moved to Bhubaneswar to do my engineering. Uh, from a family perspective, I would say I'm actually coming from a probably at that time where you can say it's like a poor family, because my parents have both of my parents have never attended high school, right? So that's a kind of family that I come from. But my father has a dream, like, okay, I will make my son to be the first person to do a job. So none of my family member actually has done a job job because everybody actually runs a shop. Uh, so that's where my journey started. I think in the childhood, it's like usual. You don't take the responsibility, just enjoy your days in the school. Study wise, I think I was a little better. And then when after plus two, we thought, okay, what do you want to do? Because he had a dream, and then also I was good in some form of study. Then we chosen, okay, let's do engineering. Then I come to Bhubaneswar, did my BTech, then got placed in Huawei. That's in my college days during the campus interview. That's why in 2006 I joined as an engineer. But I think I've never been an engineer as such, because now I have 15 years of experience. I was engineer only for 2 years in my career, because the biggest reason was when you come out of college, you start working in an organization. It's like, okay, they will decide where you have to work. I was working on something which is quite old legacy technology, which I was really not liking. And that actually driven me to think something that, okay, how do I learn something or learn something different, which actually give me an upper edge in the market and then differentiate me among the in the peers. That actually consistently driven in my career, though I was in kind of a technical sales and solutions architect kind of role. Currently I work in Boston Consulting Group, which is a business strategy company. and you'll find very few engineers who are actually working in BCG, because they most of the folks in here is actually from world's top 10 schools. Yeah, I think always has been the focus has been like do something which you really believe that has a value in doing it, and always think about consistently upgrading yourself with the new kind of demands that you get in the market.
So do you have any, I would say aha moments in terms of the decisions that you took, or in terms of the experience that you received, or in terms of the bosses you received, or guidance you received, or anything like that? Do you still remember that this is what I have done really well, and this is I'll remember for my life?
Okay, I think the biggest moment in my life was like when I got a job. Right? Because when I passed my +2, my father, I think my father is a shopkeeper, right? So he does not know anything about engineering or medical. The people who are actually in different areas, they actually come and tell, okay, I think medical is good, because in engineering there are few of my seniors who actually did the engineering and they were jobless that time, and he has seen them, right? So he does not believe that, oh, if you do engineering you will just spend a lot of money and then at the end you will be coming here. So that was the kind of thinking that he had got that time. And I was never interested in medical, because I know how weak I am in the biology kind of thing. So I was always wanting to get into engineering. So there was kind of a around I mean, it was not less than a Mahabharata between father and son when I actually decided to go for engineering. Then when I started actually doing engineering, I was always having something like the responsibility, because family, then I have sisters, then I have brothers who also has to grow. Uh, then when there were some campus interviews going on, and then when I clicked one campus interview, and that time I was my salary in that company, I would say it was highest in the entire university. So after that, I called my father saying, okay, today I got a job. And then, are you happy that I'm not going back to my village without a job? So that one I think is a aha moment, I would say, in my life.
Wonderful. So I think did you do some sort of other education or certification or training or on the job learning which really helped you advance your career?
Absolutely. I think it is still, that's the only thing which I'm doing, which I've been doing in last 15 years of my job. Uh, okay, certification is important, because that actually shows, that actually proves or gives some sort of evidence that yes, you have learned this or you have mastered on this particular thing. But when you go to a job, that's where you need a lot of practical knowledge. Certification is just a matter of getting that basics clear. It's always good to learn something in a practical sense. When you learn something, you actually imagine that scenario, and that actually kind of should map to your mind just kind of a story, so that you will never forget that, and then you know how to act on the learning that you have got. In my career, I would say that I started as an engineer. Now I'm a kind of C-suite strategist. So the all of the career path that I've taken, only way to achieve this is actually learning and applying what you are learning. And and also at the same time, there should be two key important things. One is the purpose, like why are you doing what are you doing, right? Just ask yourself, why are you doing it? Is it really making some change? It is making you feel good. And second thing is, change is constant. So you should be always leverage or embrace that change for good, right? So these are the two things I would say is very important: certification, training, and then consistently upgrading yourself is very important, especially if you are in a technology industry. Day by day, many technologies are coming. One technology is getting outdated in a couple of years. So you always need to clear your foundational or fundamental learning of technology, and then always learn something to be relevant in the market.
So any event or experience also helped you? Any apart from certification, any event or any experience, particular experience, type of experience, which really change your career path completely from engineering to, let's say,
Yeah,
management and consulting and so on?
absolutely. I think there was one when I was actually working in my first company, and then I was like kind of a still in a technical role. The opportunity came in a sudden way. Like there was some discussion, people are having actually coffee. Then I was actually having coffee in the cafeteria. There were a few senior stakeholders came from the headquarters, and then they were talking about something. Then when I met them, just a hello, and then they said what you're doing, which areas that are working, what are the strengths and things like that. That time I was actually able to communicate that what is that I'm doing and what my career goals are. They actually, and that coffee meeting, it had happened like when they went back to the headquarters, there was some project coming in Europe. They actually asked my super boss for me to be in that project. And that actually given me a completely different direction out from technology to look at technology sales, right? So I was actually the pre-sales consultant there, which actually be in front of customer, show the value of technology, try to solve the problems of the customer, and win the credibility in front of customer. So that actually was a starting point of my second chapter in my career, I would say.
Wow, that's a excellent actually story. So, what is your advice to our listeners? How they can accelerate their career growth, and how's the career in agri supply chain management? Is it interesting? Should they go there? And if you have to go there, then what they need to do?
Yeah, I think in general, my advice would be like, as I said, two things: having the purpose. Think about what are you doing, why are you doing? Like not only what are you doing, but why are you doing that? Second thing is always learn something, lifetime learning, and then to be able to upgrade yourself and be relevant in the market. And when it comes to the agriculture supply chain particular domain, I say there is a lot of potential, and the challenges are also many. Uh, the potential is how can you bring a small change in the farmers or probably a particular area. Uh, you can say like, okay, first of all, you have to build that connection. You have to join those dots as we spoke about the supply chain and where is the fragmentation and the siloed operating model, and how do you create that supplier network, and then aggregators, and then a local facilities like storage and all these things. You create that map first, and then you try to analyze where is the bottleneck, is the problem. If you really want to make a change, start from one problem where you see which is actually critical, and then you will be able to solve that problem, or probably you and along with your friends should be able to solve the problem. Aim big, but don't start big. Start with small, uh, and you get into that. Then you actually will get an experience of, okay, are you able to make the change? Are you able to achieve what you desired? Then is it something that you have the ability to do, or is it something that which keeps you or makes you feel good by doing it? You ask these questions yourself. If you find yes, this is the right place that I've chosen, then I think you will be able to reach there, because that actually builds some sort of behavior and attitude in us to bring that change. And then you will be behaving like an activist, and absolutely you can grow further and further once you grow in that. There is an opportunity, as I said, challenges are also a lot. You just have to plan it and take a baby steps, and then try to go further.
Yeah, I'm sure if the agriculture is going to grow that far, and the demand of food is going to go that far, there
Yeah,
must be opportunities in the future. There's no doubt about that.
there's no doubt
Even
about
in agri supply chain. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Manmath, so much. Thank you so much. I think we had a wonderful conversation,
it.
and I
Thank you so
think
much.
this agri supply chain management is not something that everyone understand and everyone knows about it. So I think that's a very good knowledge gain for everyone. It's very different, and I think we are short of time now. Only 5 minutes left, and I will hand over now to Nistush to ask some questions. Which has been asked by the participants. So over to you, Nistush.
Thank you so much. And as you said, Ravi sir, this was really interesting. Not a lot of people talk about agriculture and supply chain together. So it was really nice to have these insights. So I'll take questions from the audience now. So I'll start with the first question by Mr. Rahul. So he says, "Hi Manmat, what is the current role and what will be the future role of cold supply chain? What kind of opportunities we have in the area of basically cold supply chain in India?
Okay. So giving a bit of background. So though I haven't studied the entire cold chain in India, actually I did a study of cold chain available in Odisha. And I'm sure that most part of the India will also have the same problem. And if you look at the advanced states like Maharashtra or Tamil Nadu, they might be having less sort of problems there. There is a great potential of the cold chains, number one. Number two, the challenge that we see currently is actually where you really need those cold chains is not available there. And where you have the cold chains, you have your capacity is not being utilized. This is the biggest problem that I have seen. That the way the cold chains has been planned and the subsidies has been given, people actually have taken advantage of that, and then they have started some cold chain, which is equal to non-functional. But if you look at demand perspective, and then what's the potential in the future, there is a potential, because when we talk about moving away from like paddy kind of thing to the fruits and vegetables, that is where your cold chain is critical component in the supply chain. And having a cold chain within the radius, say 30 kilometer within your where you see the produce, that is very much necessary. One, to reduce the wastage that you have, and then number two, you also can hold that for few days to wait when there is a good price for that. You are not distressed to sell at the moment you do the harvest. So these are the two advantages of having a cold chain which is near to that area. And also you look at build a model, like for example, I hear there are some solar cold chains also are coming, which is very portable. The capital is required is also quite less, and you can start from there, and you see there is growing, and then you can expand that. And this very important thing, connect to the farmers, create that awareness, like why they need to come to you and store the stuffs in the cold chain. You cannot just open a cold chain and say people will come to me. They will not come. You need to go and create that awareness, like, okay, if you come here, these are the advantages that you get, and you have to show them like with few of the progressive farmers, and then take them as like an ambassador to you, and then move ahead in that particular plan.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The next question is from Mr. Ravindra Singh. He says, could you share example of how data analytics is used to help out agriculture supply chain?
Yeah. Data and analytics, or in the case of artificial intelligence, that is being used the every parts of the supply chain. For an example, you look at the farmers in the land itself, looking at the climatic condition, looking at the health of the soil, looking at the kind of times of the year and the kind of produce that you want to build. This collecting all this data, it can actually take the trends and then predict, or probably give you some sort of insights, like how do you need to care about those the growing, like when you do the farming. Second thing, if you collect the demand data, market data, pricing data, that actually gives you an indication when you need to actually harvest. When there is a potential demand and then supply is less, this is a particular time that you need to plan to harvest things. And when I talk to you about the jointing between from your farmers to your consumer or the market, at every part of the supply chain, there is a need of data and analytics, and the use of something like IoT or device or sensors. For an example, like within my cold chain, I should a state level cold chain aggregator be able to what kind of quantities of the things are available in the local level or in the district level, and then when we should plan to use what capacity of the vehicle to reach to that cold chain, and how much time it will take to come here, and then where we should keep the storage capacity, and when we really need to aggregate. So these kind of all of this information is something which is being done based on our human knowledge today. And if you can collect this data, put into some sort of data like kind of the technology, and then try to use some sort of statistical or analytical analysis, then you should be able to make this supply chain much more efficient.
Great, thank you. The next question is from Mr. Arun Khanna. How local delivery of seeds and irrigation spare parts are being made to farmers at their villages?
Okay, today, what I see that is being done at the local shops, like local shops are there. They actually buy those, seeds and fertilizers and farming equipments. Either they can directly sell it, or probably they can sell it in a credit way, right? You just take it, and then when you bring the produce, either you sell to someone, pay us the money, or you give the produce to us. So intelligent intermediaries, they actually taken that sort of business model. They procure all of this inputs and farm equipments, and then give it to them, and you take the produce. So by doing that, it's actually build a relationship. Okay, you take this, and then you do all of the farming, and then you have to return back to me. I just don't need the money, I need the produce. That's a way you are giving them the help that they need, giving them the assurance that whatever you produce, I will buy from you. And farmers will not mind getting a lesser less paid for the producers that they have. This is a current model that they have. And if you look at the FPO model, I think FPO should do this. FPO should be able to take all of these advantages that are existing in the local area, and then they should leverage that and then make it more efficient at a bigger scale, like thousands of farmer scale.
Great. So I think we have a follow-up question based on your answer for cold storage one. So this is by Mr. Satish. He's saying, what is the update on minimize cost for storage into cold storage?
Sorry, I think minimized cost of storage into cold storage. Is that what your question?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I didn't get the question quite fully. If I just take an approximate answer, like you're saying, how can you build a cold storage at the minimum cost and also having some sort of profit for your investments? As I said, like before even you start the cold storage, always do an assessment of where are the farmers, and what's the quantity, and what's the kind of products that they're producing, and then that actually, and do a kind of a study of those products. What's the shelf life? How do you take care of it? Do you really need to wash them before storing or after storing? So this kind of assessment they needed. Then you look at, okay, what's the kind of cold storage and size, capacity, and your availability of the electricity and all of these things into consideration. Then you start something small. As an example, if you start with a solar cold storage, and then you able to get, or that your producers are coming, and then you are able to sell it. So that rolling, when you do it, that actually gives a bit of confidence to you, and also to the farmers. And then you can scale it to be able to get the profit, because at the small scale, getting the profit is very difficult. So once you get that rolling, and then have the foundational set, and then you try to scale it, and then that will actually give some sort of benefits or profit for you.
I hope that was what Mr. Satish was looking for. So we'll just okay. He says what I mean is how it's been made affordable to end customer.
Okay, I mean end customer. If I look at here, the from an advantage standpoint, the end customer would be the farmer, because they are the one that you are buying, or they are the one who is actually storing the produce here. For them to be able to make it affordable, you need to give them a better price, right? If they are able to sell that, say for example, that cauliflower 20 rupees kilo when they harvest, and then if you are saying, okay, you store it here, then you pay like maybe 3 days, 3 rupees in per week, and that's not going to help them. But if you can say, okay, there is a potential of selling cauliflower in this particular city 40 rupees on this week, or this time. If I can procure the cauliflower at 20 rupees from the farmers, like before 1 week or 2 weeks, or maybe depending on the shelf life of that particular produce, I should be able to get that product sold in market at a higher price. Two ways: either you can buy it and you store, and then you take all the risk, or you sell to the farmer that you have to show them. I mean, you just cannot just say them. You just have to show them this has been done, and then you need to do that for once or twice time, depending on the capital appetite that you have. And if you were able to convince the farmer by doing this, then they will come to you, and then you will be able to make it a profitable business. Explaining or making the awareness of the farmer is important. Without that, these things have a risk of not flying.
Great. So I'll take up the last question for the episode today. It's from Mr. Mayur, and this question is with respect to pesticides. So he is asking if there will be any transition from non-organic chemicals to organic chemicals in future. How affordable will it be to normal farmer, and if there will be any CNF agents for distribution of this pesticides, or it will be direct to farmers from factory?
Okay, I think transition. There are two parts to it. One is the fertilizer, and then second thing is the availability of things. Transitioning from non-organic to organic, I think this is becoming very critical these days, because if you look at least after COVID, what's the sentiments that I hear is people are actually becoming more health conscious. They're actually transitioning into the organic food, and then they also want a transparency of the traceability of the food. Like they want to know where this food has grown, how it is coming in the supply chain, and how they reach them to them. So if you do all of this, and core or the starting point of it is actually producing the product organically, and not utilizing some sort of forced labor and things like that. So to grow that produce organically, you need to actually transition from to a better sort of fertilizers or the inputs. There are many companies that I see is actually getting or selling that, and then creating that awareness in terms of, okay, what's the advantage that they will get in this organic input. From a cost wise, it is more, and it is not easy to convince the farmer, like, okay, you start using this organic input, but whatever you are producing, I'm actually giving you the same price what I used to give, right? So for the farmers, it is not a benefit, and then the farmer will not be able to do that because he doesn't see a value of doing this farming practice and selling the price at a lower cost, right? So what it needs to be done is, like, if contract farming and things like that will play a very critical role here, because they can give all the inputs, they can give all the practices to the farmers to grow certain products in that area organically, and then they can take it and then they can give a better price to them. So that model, I think, is a starting point to create an awareness of using or producing products organically. And if that goes for a couple of years, that actually creates a case study for other farmers to take into that sort of route. But at this point in time, as I said, it is not easy for the farmers to take that sort of route, because they will not be able to sell the producers at the price that they were wanting.
Right. That is pretty interesting insights from you, Mr. Manmath. A very unique topic, and I'm sure the audience would have learned a lot. And from the recording, there'll be a lot of people that will be gaining in this area of agriculture supply chain. So thank you once again for joining in. Thank you, Ravi sir, for hosting this episode once again. To all the audience, thank you for joining in on Saturday. I hope it was valuable to you and you are taking good insights from this episode. Sorry. So our next episode is on 26th of June on intelligent supply chain led by IoT, AI, and blockchain. A pretty interesting topic for that. It's again at 4 p.m. on the same link. Feel free to join, and please spread the word about SCM Talk Show among your colleagues. Thank you so much once again, and stay safe and take care.
Thank you so much.